The great hall of the United Species Assembly had never been so quiet. Representatives from 100 different worlds sat in their seats. Their eyes were fixed on the tall figure standing at the center platform. High Counselor Temris of the Valori Collective raised his 4 arms and waited for complete silence. "My fellow beings of the galaxy," he began, his voice shaking slightly, "I come before you today with a warning that may save us all." Behind him, a massive holographic screen flickered to life. It showed a small blue planet, third from a yellow sun. The planet looked peaceful, beautiful, even, but Temris spoke of it like it was a disease. "This world is called Earth," he said, "and the creatures living there are called humans. They must never be allowed to join our galactic community. They must be quarantined, contained, forever." Whispers spread through the hall. Some representatives leaned forward with curiosity. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Temris continued, "Our research teams have studied these beings for 200 years. What we have learned is terrifying." The screen changed. It showed images of humans hunting, running, fighting. Temris pointed at each image as he spoke. "Humans are persistent predators. They do not have claws or fangs or armor, but they chase their prey for hours, days, until the prey simply falls from exhaustion. They never stop. They never give up." More images appeared. Humans standing beside large animals with sharp teeth. Dogs, wolves, lions. They take the most dangerous creatures on their planet and make them into companions. They call these killing machines pets. They let them sleep in their homes. They let them play with their children. A gasp rose from the assembly. The representative from the Myra system fainted. "It gets worse," Temris said. "Humans consume poisons for pleasure. Caffeine, alcohol, capsaicin. These substances would kill most species. Humans drink them every morning and call it breakfast." He paused to let the horror sink in. "Their bodies heal from wounds that would be fatal to any of us. They cut open their own kind to fix them and call it medicine. They survive in extreme heat and extreme cold. They survive in water and on mountains and in places where nothing should live." The screen showed humans laughing after falls that would break bones. Humans walking away from crashes. Humans fighting and then embracing like nothing happened. "But the most dangerous thing about humans," Temris said slowly, "is their emotions. They feel everything too strongly. Love, hate, joy, rage. They make decisions based on feelings instead of logic. They go to war over ideas. They die for strangers. They are completely unpredictable." He turned to face the assembly directly. "These creatures are too dangerous to exist among us. I propose we establish a permanent quarantine around their system. No contact, no trade, no communication. We will pretend they do not exist, and we will pray they never find us." The vote was unanimous. The quarantine was approved. 3 months later, Captain Yuna stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge. It was humanity's first true interstellar vessel. Years of work had gone into building it. Years of dreams about meeting other life forms among the stars. Now those dreams were dying. The broadcast from the assembly had reached Earth a week ago. Yuna had watched it 17 times. Each time, she felt the same cold anger in her chest. "Captain," said Tay, her second in command. He was a tall man with steady hands and worried eyes. "The crew is asking questions. They want to know what we do now." Yuna looked around the bridge. Dr. Hannah sat at her medical station, her face pale. Chief Engineer Minho was pretending to check systems, but his hands were shaking. The rest of the crew waited in silence. "They called us monsters," Minho said quietly. "They said we are too dangerous to live among them." "They are afraid of us," Hannah added. They looked at everything that makes us human and saw only threats. Yuna nodded slowly. She understood their pain. She felt it too. Humanity had spent centuries dreaming of the stars. They had imagined meeting alien civilizations. They had hoped for friendship, for learning, for a bigger universe full of wonder. Instead, they found fear. They do not know us, Yuna said finally. They saw our survival skills and called us predators. They saw our medicine and called it violence. They saw our emotions and called us unstable. She stood up from her captain's chair and faced her crew. But they are not entirely wrong. The crew stared at her in surprise. We are persistent, Yuna continued. We do not give up. We form bonds with dangerous things because we see beauty where others see threat. We survive because we refuse to die. We feel everything deeply because that is how we love. She walked to the main viewport and looked out at the stars. They have closed their doors to us. They have drawn a line and told us to stay on our side. They think this will protect them. Yuna turned back to her crew with fire in her eyes. But they have made a mistake. They have locked us in here with ourselves. And there is nothing in this universe more dangerous than humans with time to think and room to grow. She sat back down in her chair. We will respect their quarantine. We will not force ourselves where we are not wanted. But we will build. We will learn. We will become something they cannot ignore. Tay stepped forward. And if they never change their minds? Yuna smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just accepted a very long game. Then we will wait. Humans are good at waiting. We are good at surviving. And someday, somehow, they will meet us. When that day comes, we will be ready. The horizon's edge turned away from the quarantine barrier and headed back toward Earth. Behind them, the stars continued to shine, cold, distant, forbidden. But Yuna knew something the galaxy did not. Walls do not last forever, and neither does fear. 300 years passed behind the quarantine barrier. The galaxy forgot about humans. Or at least, they tried to forget. The Valori Collective kept their sensors pointed at the Sol system, watching from a safe distance. They expected to see humans destroy themselves. They expected war, collapse, extinction. What they saw instead made them afraid. Admiral. They stood on the observation deck of Station Kepler. It was the largest space station humanity had ever built. It floated at the edge of the quarantine zone like a steel giant watching over its territory below the station. 12 star systems sparkled with light. Human light. Cities on moons. Factories on asteroids. Ships moving between worlds like blood flowing through veins. The quarantine was meant to be a prison. Humans had turned it into a home. "Father," said a voice behind him. Day turned to see his daughter Sue walking toward him. She wore the uniform of a lieutenant in the Sol Defense Fleet. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her eyes were sharp like her mother's had been. "You should be resting," Day said. "Your patrol shift starts in 4 hours." "I could not sleep," Sue admitted. She joined him at the viewport and looked out at the stars. "I was thinking about what lies beyond the barrier." Day nodded slowly. Every human thought about it. The barrier was invisible, but always present. A wall made of alien fear. A reminder that humanity was not welcome in the wider galaxy. "I have never seen an alien," Sue said quietly. "Not in person. Only in old recordings and warning broadcasts." "Do you think they really look like the images?" "I do not know," Day replied. "I have never seen one either. My father never saw one. His father never saw one. They locked us away before any of us were born." Sue was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that every young human asked eventually. "Do you think they will ever let us out?" Day looked at his daughter. She was brave and strong and smart. She could have been an explorer in another time, a diplomat, an ambassador to strange new worlds. Instead, she patrolled the same 12 systems over and over, watching a barrier that never moved. "They are too afraid," they said honestly. And fear does not fade easily. Meanwhile, inside the quarantine zone, humanity did what humanity had always done. They built Dot in the 1st century. They colonized every rock that could hold a dome. Mars became green with forests. The moons of Jupiter became factory worlds. The asteroid belt was transformed into a network of mining stations and shipyards. Dot in the 2nd century, they pushed further. They developed new engines that bent space itself. They learned to grow food in the void. They created artificial minds that could think alongside humans instead of against them. Dot in the 3rd century. They mastered things the galaxy had never imagined. Dr. Hannah, now 120 years old, thanks to human medical science, watched the latest breakthrough from her research station on Titan. Her assistant, a young scientist named June, was showing her the results of their gravity manipulation experiment. "We did it," June said, barely able to contain his excitement. "We can create stable gravity fields without spinning. We can make gravity go any direction we want." Hannah smiled. Her body was old, but her mind was still sharp as ever. She had dedicated her life to pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The quarantine had taken away the stars, but it had not taken away human curiosity. "The aliens locked us in a box," she said softly. "They thought we would wither and die. They did not understand humans at all." "What do you mean?" June asked. Hannah gestured at the impossible gravity field floating in front of them. "When you put humans in a box, they do not sit quietly. They study the box. They take it apart. They rebuild it into something new. And eventually, they outgrow it." She looked out the window at the distant glow of the quarantine barrier. "Someday, we will need to leave this place. And when we do, we will bring everything we have learned with us." Back on Station Kepler, Admiral Day received a report from the border sensors. The Valori were watching again. They did this every few months. Probes would approach the barrier, scan human space, and then retreat. "What do they see when they look at us?" Sue asked, reading the report over her father's shoulder. They studied the data. Human population had grown to 50 billion. They had spread across 12 systems. Their technology had advanced far beyond what the galaxy expected from a quarantined species. "They see exactly what they feared," they said. "They see humans surviving, growing, thriving. They see a species that refused to die just because someone told them to." "Does that scare them more?" Sue asked. "Probably." Day set down the report and turned to face her. "But someday, something will scare them more than us. The galaxy is vast and old and full of dangers. The Valori think they are safe because they have many allies and big fleets." He paused. "But we have something they do not." "What?" Day smiled. It was a sad smile, a patient smile. The smile of a man who had spent his whole life waiting. "We have 300 years of being alone. 300 years of having no one to rely on except ourselves. 300 years of building and learning and preparing for a day that may never come." He put a hand on his daughter's shoulder. "They made us into exactly what they feared. They just do not know it yet." Sue nodded slowly. She understood now. The quarantine was not a cage. It was a forge. And humanity had been shaped by its fire into something new, something patient, something ready. Outside the station, the barrier shimmered faintly. It had stood for 3 centuries. It would not stand forever. Nothing ever did. The first warning came from the outer rim. A small colony on the edge of Valori space sent a distress signal. It was short. Only 3 words. Then silence. "They are coming." No one knew who they were. The Valori sent a patrol fleet to investigate. 40 ships, 2,000 crew members, the best sensors and weapons in the galaxy. The fleet arrived at the colony. What they found made the captain scream. The planet was gone. Not destroyed, not burned, gone. A hollow shell remained where a world of 3 million beings once lived. Something had consumed it from the inside out. Before the captain could send the report, the darkness moved. They called it the Corvette Swarm. It was not a species. It was not an army. It was hunger given form. Trillions of biomechanical creatures that existed for one purpose only: to feed. They consumed planets the way fire consumed wood. They did not negotiate. They did not communicate. They simply ate. The Valori fleet lasted 19 minutes. The last transmission was a single image. Massive shapes blocking out the stars. Teeth the size of buildings. Eyes that glowed with cold intelligence. Then static. Within 3 months, the outer rim fell. 16 worlds. 8 billion beings. Gone. High Counselor Temris called an emergency meeting of the United Species Assembly. The great hall that had once been full of pride and power was now filled with fear. Representatives wept openly. Some had already lost their homeworlds. "We must combine our fleets," Temris declared. "We must make a stand. Together, we can stop this threat." The combined fleet of 12 civilizations gathered at the Corinth system. It was the largest military force the galaxy had ever assembled. 40,000 ships. Weapons that could crack moons. The finest commanders from every species. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the Valori flagship drifted through a field of burning debris. Temris sat in an escape pod, watching his world grow smaller through the tiny window. Below him, his planet burned. Cities that had stood for 10,000 years were being consumed. Around him floated the scattered remains of galactic civilization. Refugee ships from a dozen different species. Broken fleets. Shattered hopes. "Where do we go?" asked his aide, a young Valori named Kiris. "The swarm is moving toward the core systems. There is nowhere safe." Temris stared at the stars. He had spent his entire political career keeping the galaxy safe. Building alliances. Maintaining order. Creating barriers against threats. Barriers. His blood ran cold. "There is one place," he said slowly. "One place the swarm has not touched." Kiris understood immediately. His scales turned pale with shock. "The quarantine zone. The humans." Temris nodded. For 300 years, he had kept humanity locked away. He had called them monsters, beasts, too dangerous to exist among civilized beings. Now he was going to beg those monsters for help. Commander Jin stood at his post on Nexus 7, the human outpost closest to the quarantine barrier. It was a quiet assignment. Nothing ever happened at the barrier. The aliens stayed on their side. Humans stayed on theirs. Until today. "Commander," said Bora, his communications officer. She was young, barely 25, but her voice was steady. "We are detecting multiple ships approaching the barrier." "How many?" Jin asked. Bora checked her readings twice before answering. "Thousands, sir. Maybe more." Jin walked to the main viewport. In the distance, he could see lights gathering. More lights than he had ever seen. An entire galaxy fleeing toward humanity's door. "They are requesting communication," Bora said. Jin felt something strange in his chest. For 300 years, humans had been alone. They had been told they were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too savage. The galaxy wanted nothing to do with them, and now the galaxy was knocking. "Open the channel," Jin ordered. The screen flickered to life. An alien face appeared, old, tired, broken. Jin recognized him from ancient recordings. High Counselor Temris, the same being who had condemned humanity all those centuries ago. "This is Commander Jin of the Human Federation," Jin said. His voice was calm but cold. "State your intentions." Temris struggled to speak. Pride and desperation fought on his face. Finally, desperation won. "Please," he said. The words seemed to cause him physical pain. "We have nowhere else to go. The swarm, it destroys everything. Every fleet, every world, every defense." He paused. His eyes met Jin's through the screen. "You were right to be savage. We were fools to fear it. We need savages now. We need humans." Jin did not respond immediately. He looked at Bora. She was staring at the screen with an expression he could not read. Anger? Pity? Both? 300 years, Jin said quietly. "You locked us away for 300 years. You called us monsters. You said we were too dangerous to exist among you." "We were wrong," Temris admitted. "We were afraid of things we did not understand. We judged you by your nature instead of your choices." He lowered his head. "Now our nature has betrayed us. We are not built for war. Not like you. We thought civilization meant softness. Peace meant weakness. We forgot that the universe does not care about civilization." Jin looked at the thousands of ships on his sensors. Families, children, survivors of a horror beyond imagination. They had come to the monsters for protection. "I cannot make this decision alone," Jin said finally. "This must go to the Federation Council." "We understand," Temris said. "We will wait." "You may be waiting a while," Jin replied. "Humans like to think carefully before they act." Temris almost laughed. "Almost. That is not what the warning said about you." Jin smiled. It was not a friendly smile. The warnings were written by people who had never met us. "Perhaps it is time you learned what humans are really like." He ended the communication and turned to Bora. "Send a message to Admiral Sue. Tell her the galaxy has come begging. Tell her we have a choice to make." Outside the station, thousands of refugee ships waited in the darkness. They had mocked humanity, feared humanity, locked humanity away. Now humanity held their fate in its hands. The Federation Council chamber had never held so many people. Human representatives sat in their usual places. But today, there were others. Alien delegates from a dozen different species stood in the center of the room. They looked small, frightened. Nothing like the powerful beings who had condemned humanity 3 centuries ago. Admiral Day, now old and gray but still strong, presided over the meeting. Beside him sat his daughter, Sue, now an admiral herself. Her uniform bore the scars of countless patrols along the quarantine barrier. High Counselor Temris stood before them. He had aged terribly since the first broadcasts. His scales were dull. His posture was bent. The pride that once filled his voice was gone. "We have shown you the recordings," Temris said. His voice barely rose above a whisper. "You have seen what the swarm does. 42 worlds destroyed. 18 billion beings dead. Every fleet broken. Every weapon useless." He spread his forearms in a gesture of surrender. "We have nothing left. No armies. No defenses. No hope. We came to you because there is nowhere else to go." The chamber was silent. Humans looked at each other. Some faces showed anger. Others showed something harder to read. Admiral Sue stood. She walked down from her seat until she stood directly in front of Temris. They were almost the same height, but Sue seemed to tower over him. "You warned the galaxy about us," she said quietly. "You called us monsters, beasts. You said we were too dangerous to live among civilized beings." Temris flinched but did not look away. "Yes, you locked us in a cage for 300 years. You watched us from the outside like we were animals in a zoo. You hoped we would die, Yes. Sue's voice grew colder. My grandmother was Captain Yuna of the Horizon's Edge. She dreamed her whole life of meeting beings from other worlds. She dreamed of friendship, of learning, of a galaxy full of wonder. She leaned closer to Temris. She died without ever seeing an alien face to face. She died knowing the galaxy hated her species. She died locked in a prison she did nothing to deserve. Temris closed his eyes. I know. Do you? Sue asked. Do you know what it feels like to be told you are too dangerous to exist? Do you know what it does to a child when they learn the universe is afraid of them? Do you know how many humans grew up believing they were monsters because you told them so? The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some could not meet the eyes of the humans around them. Dr. Hana, now incredibly old but still attending council meetings, spoke from her seat. I remember the broadcast, she said. I was young then, full of hope. We had just built our first starship. We thought we were about to join something bigger than ourselves. She shook her head slowly. Instead, we learned that the galaxy saw everything beautiful about us as ugly. Our loyalty became aggression. Our medicine became violence. Our love became instability. You took the best parts of humanity and made them into crimes. Temris looked at the old woman. We were wrong, he said. We did not understand. We saw things that frightened us, and we reacted with fear. Fear, Hana repeated. Yes, you were afraid of creatures who tame wolves and drink poison and heal from wounds that should kill them. You were afraid of beings who feel too much and love too hard and never ever give up. She paused. Now you need exactly those things. Now you need the monsters you created. Commander Nari stepped forward. She was young, fierce, the granddaughter of Captain Yuna. She had spent her whole life training for a war that might never come. We could let you burn, Nari said. It would be justice. After everything you did to us, we could watch the swarm consume you and call it fair. Temris nodded. You could. We would deserve it. Yes, Nari agreed. You would. She turned to look at the other human council members. Then she turned back to Temris. But we are not going to do that. Temris looked up. Something like hope flickered in his eyes. Why? Sue answered. Because we are human. And humans do not abandon people who ask for help. Even people who once abandoned us. She looked around the chamber at her fellow humans. They called us savage. They were right. We are savage when we need to be. But they forgot something important about humans. We are also kind. Stupidly, impossibly, irrationally kind. We help strangers. We rescue enemies. We die for people we have never met. She turned back to Temris. You wanted us to be monsters. Fine. We will be monsters. But we will be your monsters. We will fight the swarm because you cannot. We will be savage so you do not have to be. Admiral Day stood slowly from his chair. He walked down to stand beside his daughter. 300 years ago, my ancestors made a promise, he said. They promised that when the galaxy needed humanity, we would be ready. That day has come. He looked at Temris directly. We will open the quarantine barrier. We will let your people enter our space. We will protect them with everything we have. And then we will go out there and we will show the swarm what happens when you threaten beings that humanity has chosen to protect. Temris fell to his knees. Around him, the other alien delegates did the same. They had come expecting rejection, anger, revenge. Instead, they found something they did not understand. Grace. Thank you, Temris whispered. I do not deserve this. None of us do. Nari reached down and pulled him back to his feet. No, she said. You do not. But that is exactly why we are going to do it. Humans do not help people because they deserve it. We help them because they need it. She smiled. It was the smile of her grandmother. The smile of a species that had been locked away for centuries and had decided to answer hatred with heroism. Welcome to human space, counselor. Try not to be afraid. We only bite enemies. The council voted unanimously. The war would begin. Outside the chamber, Admiral Sue looked up at the stars she had watched her whole life. Soon, she would finally cross the barrier. Finally see what lay beyond. Grandmother, she whispered, we are coming. The human fleet crossed the quarantine barrier for the first time in 300 years. Admiral Sue stood on the bridge of the battleship Iron Will. Around her, 2,000 human vessels moved through space like a fist closing. Behind them, the barrier flickered and died. It would never rise again. Admiral, reported her tactical officer, a young man named Hyan. We are receiving data from the Lori scouts. The swarm is holding position at Corinth Prime. They are waiting. Waiting for what? Sue asked. For us, I think. They know we are coming. Sue nodded. Good. She wanted them to know the trip to Corinth Prime took 3 weeks. During that time, the alien refugees watched humanity prepare for war. What they saw terrified them. Human soldiers trained constantly. They ran until they collapsed. They fought until they bled. They pushed their bodies past every limit, and then pushed further. When one soldier fell, another took their place. When weapons failed, they used their hands. Commander Nari led the ground forces. She held training sessions that made the alien observers physically ill. Humans crawling through mud. Humans climbing walls with bare fingers. Humans fighting in complete darkness, using only sound and smell. This is madness, whispered Kiris, the young Valori aide to High Counselor Temris. They enjoy this. They actually enjoy pain. Temris watched a human soldier laugh after being knocked down for the 20th time, then get up and keep fighting. They do not enjoy pain, Temris said slowly. They enjoy overcoming it. Every obstacle is a challenge to them. Every barrier is something to break through. He shook his head in wonder. We thought we understood humans when we studied them. We understood nothing. Commander Jin led the engineering corps. They worked around the clock, modifying ships, building new weapons, creating devices that the galaxy had never seen. Human engineers did not stop to eat or sleep. They simply worked until they fell over, then woke up and continued. Your people are going to kill themselves before the battle even starts, Kira said to Jin. Jin smiled. We will rest when we are dead. Until then, there is work to do. The Battle of Corinth Prime began at dawn. The swarm filled the sky like a living shadow. Billions of creatures. Ships that were also monsters. Weapons that were also teeth. They had destroyed every fleet sent against them. They had consumed 42 worlds without ever losing a battle. They had never fought humans. Admiral Sue gave one order to her fleet. Forward. 2,000 human ships charged directly into the heart of the swarm. They did not form defensive lines. They did not wait for opportunities. They simply attacked. The swarm responded with overwhelming force. Thousands of biomechanical creatures swarmed toward the human fleet. Acid weapons. Claw ships. Things that should not exist in any sane universe. The human ships exploded into action. Weapons that bent gravity crushed swarm creatures into dust. Missiles that humans had spent centuries perfecting tore through enemy lines. When ships ran out of ammunition, they rammed directly into the largest targets. Pilots laughed as they died. On the ground. It was worse. Commander Nari led the assault on the main hive. 10,000 human soldiers against a planet full of monsters. The odds were impossible. The humans did not care. They fought in ways the swarm had never encountered. Soldiers strapped bombs to their bodies and walked into tunnels. Medics operated on wounded soldiers while bullets flew around them. Engineers built weapons in the middle of combat, adapting faster than the enemy could respond. "Pull back," screamed a Valori observer who had insisted on joining the ground assault. "This is suicide." Nari grabbed him and threw him behind cover. "It is not suicide," she said. "It is Tuesday." She charged back into the fighting, firing her weapon with one hand and dragging a wounded soldier with the other. The battle lasted 7 years. 7 years of constant warfare. 7 years of human savagery unleashed. The galaxy watched in horror and wonder as humanity did what no other species could do. They did not just fight the swarm. They hunted it. Human soldiers tracked swarm forces across dozens of systems. They chased them into the darkest corners of space. They did not rest. They did not negotiate. They simply kept coming. Admiral Sue lost her right arm in the 3rd year of the war. She got a mechanical replacement and was back in command within a week. Commander Jin died in the 5th year, sacrificing his ship to destroy a swarm queen. Nari named a battalion after him and continued fighting in the 7th year. The last swarm queen fell. Nari stood on its corpse, covered in blood and ash, and things she did not want to identify. Behind her, the remnants of her army raised their weapons in victory. Above her, the human fleet floated in the debris of the largest battle in galactic history. She activated a galaxy-wide broadcast. "This is Commander Nari of the Human Federation. The swarm is destroyed. Every last one of them." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "Humanity stands. Anyone who stands with us is welcome. Anyone who stands against us will be remembered." She ended the transmission. The war was over. 5 years later, old Admiral Sue stood at a memorial on Earth. It honored the millions of humans who had died fighting the swarm. Beside her stood High Counselor Temris, still alive despite everything. "You warned the galaxy about us," Sue said softly, looking at the names carved in stone. "We did," Temris admitted. "And we were right." Sue raised an eyebrow. "Humans are dangerous," Temris continued. "Terrifying. Unpredictable. You fight like demons and love like fools. You do not know when to quit, and you do not care about the odds." He turned to face her. "But you are also impossibly, stubbornly kind. You could have let us die. You had every reason to. 300 years of hatred and fear. We deserved to burn." "You did," Sue agreed. "But you saved us anyway. You bled for us. You died for us. You treated us like family when we had treated you like disease." He bowed his head. "I do not understand humans. I do not think I ever will. But I am grateful you exist." Sue looked up at the stars. The barrier was gone forever. Human ships flew freely among 100 different worlds. The species that had once feared humanity now welcomed them as heroes. "You know what the funny thing is?" Sue said. "We did not save you to prove a point. We did not save you to make you feel guilty. We saved you because you were scared and hurt and alone." She smiled. It was her grandmother's smile, warm, sad, full of something that aliens could not quite name. That is the thing about monsters, Counselor. Sometimes they are exactly what you need. Above them, the stars shone bright. Not cold, not distant, not forbidden. Finally, they were home.